Okay.
Perfect. We are recording. Welcome everyone to the February Agroforestry Northwest Workgroup meeting. Really appreciate everyone joining for this one because we're going to do it a little differently than what we usually do. You've been getting emails from me, so you all kind of know what to expect at this point. But I just want to say thank you doubly because I was a little worried personally that we were going to scare people off with this idea, and it was going to be like four of us that wanted to share, and then one of those people would take like 20 minutes of it or something, So this is going to be fun. I'm really excited with the turnout and how excited everyone was to share what they're doing. And so we did have, I think, like 15, 16 people sign up to share, which would be about 5 minutes each person. Some people did let me know they can't make it, and I'm not seeing everyone on the list here, so we'll play it by ear a little bit. Um, and if we have time left over and somebody wants to jump in that didn't, tell me they wanted to share, you're more than welcome. So a little bit of housekeeping or logistics, I guess. Everyone has share capabilities. And I know we're all probably super familiar with Zoom at this point, to the point of exhaustion, maybe, but if you're not familiar, all you have to do to share your screen, there's a little green button on your panel. Should be at the bottom, at least it is for me, but I'm the admin on this, so it might look a little bit different. But big green button at the bottom, hits share screen. It's going to bring up a menu, and then you can choose what you want to share from that point, whether it's a PowerPoint or some photos, whatever. And then if you have any issues, we can work it out as it goes, or as we go along. So I have the list of folks that wanted to share, and I'm just going to kind of pick them out along as based on who's first on my list, which is Lucas Maurer. Am I saying that right, Lucas?
You got it. I'm first up.
You're first
Oh,
up.
lucky me.
Yeah, kick us off.
Right on. My name's Luke, or Lucas, whatever you like, just as long as you spell it with a K. I live in Portland, Oregon. I work for Friends of Zenger Farm, which is a urban farm education nonprofit. Um, I'm interested personally, and have been for a long time. I think I first kind of got turned on to the notions through the world of permaculture and the like, but also through the Agro Innovations podcast, which was, kind of like early days of podcasting and hosted stuff from people using appropriate technology and working with the land, kind of then. And um, listened to a bunch of that, consumed a bunch of media around it, and ended up. I was living in northern Spain at the time, and took there was this like ferry service to southern England, and so I went over and did a workshop with Martin Crawford at the Agroforestry Research Trust in 2011. Just to get some exposure. By the way, I don't have any pictures or anything necessarily to share, but my own narrative and interest, and just interested to connect with folks who are similarly interested. I put in the chat the restoration, regeneration potential of this, leveraging this not to go backwards, but to go forwards in how we exist, especially in urban spaces. I got inspired by seeing the urban canopy in Portland, because there's so much utility if we think beyond the fences, and see everything that's around us, in this very mixed kind of woodland that we have in urban Portland. Let's see here. I got off track. Agroforestry Research Trust. Yeah, I've been exposed to a lot of different, Tones Meyer and Jackie and some of those folks. Got in with permaculture folks here in Portland, and people who were, making kind of these backyard sanctuary, haven, food growing landscapes. And also kind of thought back to, I grew up in central Illinois, and the kind of mixed, oak, savanna, bog system there is something that is has been totally erased from the landscape in large part there. But when I think, beyond my own lifetime, beyond just computers, beyond half-lives of nuclear energy and things like that, like what will go back, what will that place go back to? I know that some folks are working on putting in, chestnut, hazelnut, cops, and diversifying that, and made hopeful by what I know will come back to the places that I've been a part of. So I'm waxing philosophy. I'm philosophically, I'm kind of getting off track, but yeah, I don't know. That's kind of generally what my interests are. I see the potential to work with many dimensions of agroforestry. I think, now, especially in Portland, we have the Clean Energy Fund grant, or tax levy and grant program, and there's a lot of talk about regenerative ag and doing stuff that's going to ease the climate change and chaos impacts that we're seeing, and especially for marginalized and distressed communities. And that technology is not contained in a photovoltaic cell. It's in an evolved cell, and increasing canopy, increasing food, connecting people with the plant life that's around them, infilling, like I was kind of talking about. I think there's ways to leverage good research and empirical data, and also install that technology, the appropriate technology of what I kind of refer to as plant vending, right? Doing all the incredible 7Fs of kind of agroforestry, food, fuel, fiber, pharmaceuticals, all of the different possible outputs. So just immense potential, stuff that we don't have, that's about regenerative resources, not finite resources. Yeah, I don't know. Excited to hear from other folks. Thanks for letting me go first.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and got like actually about a minute left. If anyone has a question, feel free to hop in. But
Please.
I was curious about Zenger Farm. I don't know much about it. Can you tell us a little bit about the missions of the farm?
Yeah, absolutely. A colleague of mine is also in the meeting, and will be able to share Sachin.
Oh, nice.
We're 25.4 acre parcel spanning the Springwater Corridor wetland area, a wetland that is home to the 5 native species of amphibians native to the Portland area, and does not have North American bullfrog in it, to my knowledge. I farm across the wetland from the main farm site at a site called Fury Field. It's got Century Farm legacy fruit trees on it, and we're developing for winter CSA program, and there's a ton of other really cool programming. I'm sure Sachin will talk about it to a degree, but we grow. My winter farm program is for the Partnerships for Health program that provides boxes of produce to community members with food access and dietary health related issues in the community at no cost to them. And so it's a pretty neat and innovative program here in Portland. So check us out. We'll drop a link to the org's website in the chat, and encourage folks to reach out, connect. Volunteer opportunities, giving opportunities, collaborative opportunities abound.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Lucas. And because we're doing such short sessions, I forgot to mention, there might not be a lot of time for questions. If there is, I'll let you know. But I really encourage everyone that talks to put their contact info in the chat, and people follow up with them, especially if you see potential for like a partnership or something like that, or if you just have other questions. But awesome. Thanks, Lucas. And yeah, hopefully we hear more about the Zenger Farm from Sachin too later. The next person I have on the list is Karishma. Karishma, you want to go next?
Cool. Yes, I can absolutely go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Karishma. My brother and I have a 10-acre forest farm, or starting to be a forest farm, in Long Branch, Washington. It has been 2 years in the making. So as you know, like, you may have this great idea, you may want to like go forward on it, but like regulatory practices, conservation practices, getting things permitted the right way takes a lot of time. And so I know I think I spoke a few months ago on one of these calls prior, but what we've done thus far, or since then, is we have started multiple beds of something called hugel culture. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I hear some people going like this, or I see some people doing this. So very cool. Everything that we have on the property stays on the property. So if we are having to cut down a tree for a specific reason, it's either going to be turned into some type of bark, or it's going to be turned into a hugel bed culture, or we're cutting our trees at 5 feet and we're plugging them with mushrooms. And we are trying a lot of really cool new things. And so originally, when we thought we wanted to build a farm, we didn't realize how much there was actually a need for research in this space. And so a lot of our strategy has been partnering with other companies, such as like local people who have been growing mushrooms for 10 years, saying, hey, you currently grow indoors. Have you thought about going outdoors? And usually the thing is like, we want to, but it's very expensive. We haven't done research in the area. And we're like, well, give us your mycelium. We'll do the research for you. We have interns that we're working with that have backgrounds in wetland or botany or whatever it may be, and we'll document it and let you know what works and what doesn't work. We also got into partnership with local plant-based fertilizer companies because they are actually looking for um, uh, things that you find in the forest, and a lot of the stuff that they're actually bringing in and importing into the US comes from like India and China in areas that are very untouched. And so we're working with them to actually grow some of the native things that we can grow in the Pacific Northwest for them. And yeah, so right now, currently, the different types of crops we're looking at are different types of mushrooms. We're doing mushroom logs. We have trees that, and I have the photos, but that our farmer who's on site every day sent them, but we barely have any signal out there, so they're not coming in very clearly. So I'll send them to everyone afterwards. But we have cut some trees at 5 feet and we're plugging them mid-March. We have mushroom beds. We're working on like a wasabi and berry polyculture as well. Patrick and I have been working very closely. He taught me how to tap maples. We have a ton of maples on the property, which we'll be tapping. And then Patrick has also been very gracious in sending over, different research from Wazoo of how we can get started in this case. And last but not least, we do have a consultant who is based out of Hawaii. They create they actually build a lot of the technology that like NRCS uses and DNR. So they are very ingrained on the super, super detailed approach well as the technology. So we have them on an hourly basis that we can call and ask for questions. And hopefully in a year, we can afford to bring them out on site. So really excited, a lot happening. We are working with Pierce County. One of the biggest things was getting this zoned as ag. So we actually set precedent in the county of having agroforestry zoned as ag. If anyone needs that proposal, please let me know. We have a lot of research in there. And then from there, we actually had the head honcho from Pierce, who's on top of the ag department, come in and take a look at the property yesterday, and basically with a smile saying that we're on track. So yeah, just it is Agroforestry X from Hawaii. Yes, Gary, you know them. But yeah, I'll pause here. A little bit of rambling from me, and I see Brandon, you're very close to my property, so we may become
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Karishma. I'm excited. I don't remember you mentioning wasabi before, but I'm very excited about wasabi like the last 2 weeks after being able to see some wasabi forest grown and eat it and know that real wasabi is so much better than the horseradish stuff we're used to. So that's an exciting one for sure. You're doing some really cool stuff.
Thanks.
Cool. Well, that was about 5 minutes on the dot, so thank you. So up next we have, is Lindsay Hunt on? I don't think she is. And I don't see Ada Alston either. Oh, sorry, that's my timer. Okay, how about Rand? Saw Rand. There you go, Rand.
Hey folks, Rand Hagenstein. I am, after a long career working for the Nature Conservancy in Alaska and a bit of a pandemic hiatus, I've teamed up with a Vermont-based nonprofit called Interlace Commons. And I'm working remotely, as we said at the beginning of the call, remote, based out of Anchorage, though all of our work takes place in Vermont. Really getting into it from a natural climate solutions perspective, looking at greater opportunities for carbon capture and for resilient land management and resilient agricultural management, with agroforestry as a great part of that solution set. Interlace Commons has been around since 2017, I think, and works primarily in the New England states and New York. Much of our work involves working directly with farmers on agroforestry planning and implementation on their properties. We also are doing put on training programs in collaboration with Savannah Institute and Appalachian Sustainable Development. One of the things actually that I want to talk about for just a minute is that we've got what I see as a pretty groundbreaking agreement with NRCS in Vermont. It's structured as a cooperative agreement, and it involves both training farms and training NRCS technical service providers through sort of a on-farm mentorship kind of approach. So as we go and work with farms throughout Vermont, we will have an NRCS person who's a good conservation planner but doesn't really know agroforestry along to jointly develop plans with farms as a way to build the internal capacity of NRCS to support agroforestry more broadly. This is, in a sense, a microcosm of a proposal to have a national agreement to provide additional training opportunities for NRCS staff and other natural resource professionals that's under discussion under the auspices of the Agroforestry Coalition. That's looking like it may have traction as a national agreement in 2025, but there's encouragement to be working at state and regional levels to develop cooperative agreements along the lines of the one that we have with NRCS in Vermont. I'm happy to expand on that if anyone wants more information or wants to follow up. My contact info is in the chat there. Let's see, we're also working under a climate smart commodities grant with Organic Valley, mostly working on silvopasture as a carbon capture technology and as a heat relief strategy for cattle on their partner farms, owner farms. Last thing I'll mention is that I'm working a little bit behind the scenes to see about opportunities for exploring indigenous forest farming strategies in boreal forests, and just trying to put together some partnerships around that. The notion being that, like everywhere else in the world, indigenous land management wasn't a passive thing, but was an active, involved, intentional activity. And there's no reason to think that that wasn't the case in northern ecosystems as well. So trying to probe and understand a little bit what those indigenous land management strategies might have been that got at production of food and medicinals and other products coming out of the forest. So that's work that we're just trying to get the partnerships started and working on. I will pause there and pass it on back to you.
Thanks, Fran. We do have about a minute left if anyone has a quick question. And I would.
I think it's the name. Is it Interlace?
Yeah, Interlace, one word, Commons. Interlacecommons.org is the website.
I just want to add, Rand, I don't know if you were around, gosh, it might have been over a year ago now, but one of our work group meetings, we had Stephanie Gutierrez from EcoTrust talk about her indigenous agroforestry project. That's like I'm working on with her as well. And that could be a really cool model if that's useful to anything you're trying to do up in the up in Alaska. I don't think, even though it's Pacific Northwest, I don't think it's really expanding into Alaska, but you know, that could be something we talk about, and if it's helpful for you to use it as a model.
Yeah, interesting. I look forward to following up there.
Awesome. All right. Well, whoops, wrong button. We have next Matt Maria. Is Matt on?
Hey everyone,
Oh yeah, you're like right next to me on my screen.
good to see many faces and names I recognize. Thank you guys for curating such an incredible group, keeping this active. I'll post my business here. Yeah, I work for King Conservation District. I really got into agroforestry in Peace Corps, Tanzania and Gambia. And in Gambia, I got to work at an old German agfo research site. And then we did a bunch of projects, mostly with live fence, taking cuttings from lots and lots of different species and doing different trials of live fence, which was super fun and interesting for keeping livestock in mostly. And yeah, there's a lot of cool things that are going on in King County. A lot of people have the privilege to be experimenting with all kinds of different things on all kinds of different size lots. And I was going to share one cooperator stuff that some of you have seen already, so apologies. So first, I'll share an article, or not even an article, just like a project that someone did for like an undergrad class that I found online. Japanese shiitake log hillside stacking. So this person's friend drew this diagram, which I thought was useful, that describes how to stack mushroom logs on a steep slope, which is commonly used in Japan because there will be rice production in the valley bottoms and then some steep hillsides where people might utilize shiitake mushroom growth. So this shows this stacking process that kind of maximizes airflow and stability. So this base log is down at the bottom. So you're looking up at the top of the hill, looking down on this. So I thought this was fun that someone drew this all out. But I came across this because of this fella who lives in Redmond, who Mr. Podlowski, here's him with his lion mane mushrooms. But he has been experimenting with this Japanese log stacking, which, here's the base logs he used, and then pretty much used the same system as the diagram that I showed up against trees here. And he's mostly just growing for himself and his buddies, but is looking at different options. And that was all I had to share with you guys, really. I guess I might as well mention that I'm doing hugel mounds too. I've been doing them for 6 years maybe, and I love breaking them open, seeing what they look like inside, and capitalizing on all that heat that they produce and all that water holding capacity. But I've been doing a lot of camas in the mounds that I've produced, and it hasn't been burnt. I was worried about the heat burning the bulbs, but there has not been any issues. They're coming up hot. So feel free to play around with that. But I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, we also have a minute here for some questions. I'm curious, could you share that document with the different logs? I would love to be able to share that out.
Yeah. Again, it's just I think the link had the college that it's from, but there's not much more information than that. But I'll try and find that. Put in the.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before.
I'd like to hear more about the live fence and if there's been some experimentation in this area with that. That's definitely something I want to experiment with. My son visited Costa Rica and saw lots of it there. I just love the idea.
Yeah, I have not seen anything here or worked on anything on my own other than my own little hedgerows, which I'm sure, well, goats could definitely find their way through. I don't know how well they can hold cattle there.
Yeah,
Any other
it's got to
people seeing
work.
stuff out there? Blackberry seems to be the best, honestly. Himalayan blackberry.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
formidable barrier.
yeah, people leave it up. Actually, people will tell me that that's their main reason for leaving it up. So it's kind of a barrier for us.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. Next on the list is Warren, which I saw you before. There you are, Warren.
Hey, afternoon, y'all. Yeah, Warren Neth. Have a farm up in Yelm, Washington, Cosmic Carrot Farm. Got to work with Patrick and our conservation district last weekend and planted in our an alley cropping system. I guess I can share screen. So can I share screen? Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
All
you,
right.
you should be able to.
And we planted an alley cropping system that incorporated gumi, aronia, and elderberry. And let me see, I got some pictures here. So this is kind of a little diagram put together to show the layout. 48-inch rows. Did some decent spacing so I could add in a herbaceous layer between these plantings. Kind of the larger layout of the field. The red rows are the perennial hedges in the alley cropping system. And the green beds would be using more as annuals, going to be focusing on dry farming techniques in those annual beds. But this is a photo of getting planted out. It's great working with Conservation District and Patrick getting a work party. So it was funded largely by the Sustainable Farms and Fields Fund, which has been which is an awesome funding source in Washington State. Hope that we can put that funding source to work for more alley cropping and agroforestry type projects in Washington State. Yeah, and yeah. Oh, that's kind of the main stuff I'd mention. I have another area on the farm that where we the previous owner had an aspen grove, and I'm going to be interplanting some Korean Sochi green tea uh in that aspen grove. So that's kind of another little agroforestry technique we're going to be utilizing on the farm. And additionally, my family has a 40-acre piece of land up on the Toutle River in Toutle, Washington, that I've been doing some agroforestry projects, planted in about 15 years ago, a couple hundred chestnuts, walnuts, and hazelnuts. And so those have been kind of growing up, and in a little wetland area, did some live staking of willow in some pattern to have some chinopus kind of grow up over time. That's a long-term strategy. So that's been one that's slowly growing in. So those are some kind of agroforestry strategies been playing with. But on the more the day-to-day job, I have a business, Cascadian Praxis, works on more public relations and communications for farms and food projects, and do short supply chain consulting for regional food system development work. So anybody has interest in helping to get out the story of their work, would love to talk to you more about developing public relations strategies.
Awesome. Thanks, Warren. And that picture looks excellent. I see you. I think you got rid of all the mulch. I don't see the mulch pile in the back anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of work. We got a minute if anyone has a question for Warren.
I'm curious about your 15-year-old chestnut planting and what, if any, production you're starting to get.
Not too much. I would say one thing that I found in that planting was the chestnuts actually had more success rate than the hazelnuts did. That was kind of a interesting observation. I thought the hazelnuts would have better success rate. But it isn't an understory. There's been some maples that have grown up faster, and so they've been getting a little more shade than I was expecting. Yeah.
Nice. Warren, can you stop sharing your screen? I thought I could.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I can. So next up we have. Oh, and by the way, Warren, you have a request for information for your business in the chat. So make sure you don't miss that. Up next is Caitlin Cadow. I'm saying that right. Is Caitlin on?
Hi.
Hey.
Yeah, I am new to the Pacific Northwest. I just recently moved here from the Midwest, and I work for Canopy Farm Management, which is an agroforestry establishment company. We also have a nursery, and we do maintenance for farmers who are interested in having some of that maintenance work contracted out on their agroforestry farm. All of our work is in the Midwest. So I'm also remote. But I'm looking forward to trying to do my own agroforestry someday, which is kind of what brought me out to the Pacific Northwest. My friends and family have some land out here, and they haven't been doing anything with it, and they're thinking of getting started. So I'm kind of using some of my project manager skills of designing, consulting, and things to try to apply it on the land out here. A little bit more about Canopy. We are a spinoff from the Savannah Institute, so we're a for-profit branch of the nonprofit Savannah Institute. We do consulting, design, planting, site prep, maintenance, and then, like I said, we also have a nursery. So yeah, I work with farmers pretty much every day, helping them design stuff for their land, and it brings me a lot of joy. So I'm kind of new to this role. My background is more so in restoration ecology, but this is really where my passion is. So excited to be stepping into this and learning more about it. That's really all I have to share.
Okay, well, there is some time for questions if anyone has them. I'm curious if you have anything you're like super excited about doing on your land specifically, and I guess coming from the Midwest, like your perspective on how it would look different here, I guess.
Yeah, well, the Midwest is much flatter. So a lot of like the farms that we do designs for out there hinge on that being part of the design. And the land out here was previously timber, and they've done a couple of harvests of the timber. It was grazed for cattle years and years and years ago, like probably a couple generations back. So that operation stopped. So I'm really still just like getting to know the land. I would love to do hazelnuts. at some point, but I'm not sure if it's suitable. I haven't dug into it too much. We've got a herd of 3 goats right now that are pretty much just pets, but we could probably put them to work as well, clearing out some brush and getting some stuff prepped. So yeah, really just beginning stages.
Awesome. Thanks, Caitlin.
Yeah.
I'm from the Midwest too, as well.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, from Michigan. So
Oh, nice. I'm from Wisconsin.
yeah, it was hard to get used to how not flat it is here. I feel like I haven't seen this in
Yeah.
50 years, but
Yeah.
Okay, so next on the list we had Kevin Dunham, and I thought he was here, and then he must have left.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. I'm terrible at finding things in the Zoom matrix. I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're next. Thanks, Kevin.
Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Dunham. I've been coming to these meetings for a little while now. I have a small farm on South Whidbey Island in Washington. We own 6 acres, and then I do intensive grazing on probably another 50 or 60 acres on different properties around the island. But my main agroforestry project is our farm here. We're focused on planting silvopasture for livestock feed and experimenting with different types of systems for that, and just been constantly learning and trying new things. So fodder and fruit and nuts. I just recently there's a 1-day farm conference here on the island. Sierra came to that, who's on the call as well. And I did a silvopasture talk, so I have some slides from that I can share, at least part of it, so you can see what we're working with. So this is our home site. When Fall Farms is our kind of working farm title. It was Dunham Farm for a while, but I'm enjoying the new name. Can you see my cursor if I move it around here? Or is it just the image?
I can see the cursor.
Okay, cool. So this fence line right here kind of delineates our back pasture. This all slopes upward to the east. And then this is kind of the barnyard area and the home site and gardens. So the main silvopasture plantings are kind of in the lower half of this back 4-acre field. And we're focused on the original plantings we did were about 6 years ago, chestnuts and apples, mostly standard size apple trees, kind of with the idea of seasonal summer slump feed for our sheep and pigs and turkeys. So we raise sheep, pasture pigs, pasture chickens, and turkeys. This is a base map showing the vegetation that we have planted. So there's several rows of chestnuts here. Hazelnuts I've started to plant between, and then the apples are here. And then I just added a patch of mulberries in this area. And we're also experimenting with some fodder tree crops that eventually we're hoping to pollard and have some summer supplemental feed for the sheep. So there's some Lombardy poplars in a little block here, some black locusts running up the fence line, and a little hedge of willows. And I'm going to be doing a few contour plantings up here and doing more poplars and black locust trees. It's pretty dry. We're a very sandy site, so water is kind of a big issue. There's a cross section of the backfield, kind of shows you the slope. So the elevation gain, is a little over 40 feet. But this is one of our apples that's about 6 years old. And this is the upper field. You can see this is kind of summertime. It's pretty dry, a lot of Scotch broom. We inherited about a 2-acre Scotch broom forest that was over your head. So slowly converting that, but it likes to resprout. There's just a little side view of we're basically doing a alley cropping in a sense with perennial pasture as the alleys. So it's about a 50-foot spacing, grazing lanes. I can also run my broiler huts up and back, and it's kind of the perfect width for that. There's some rams grazing in there. It's a bit over mature summer forage. Here's a view from the bottom of the slope. the willows here in the foreground. These are the older apples you can see, and then these little grassy patches are kind of smaller chestnuts and hazelnuts. And this is our, we do mobile broiler huts for our pasture chickens, helping fertilize everything. We go right up along the trees, kind of helps with vegetation management and also getting some more fertility. And then we do pastured turkeys as well. Great way to build a market for yourself if you want to do meat is to start with turkeys, because almost nobody does pastured turkeys and everybody wants them. It's a really good way to get customers. We got about 100 customers our first year. But they're here cleaning up under the apples. Any extra fruit drop this time of year, they're just pecking away at those. That's what this little group's doing. There's a few apples that rolled off that tree in there. They're getting after it.
What is your variety there? The white ones?
Oh, they're broad-breasted whites. So they're the commercial
Cool.
breed. Don't give them free choice feed. They'll get too big. So you got to manage kind of their feed intake. But they actually do pretty well out in the field. They eat a lot of grass, and as long as you kind of train them to eat apples when they're young, they'll devour whatever you can get them. And here's them kind of managing the grass in that little poplar block. And then this is our brooder here in the middle. So that's where we brood our young chicks. There's 3 paddocks outside of that with individual doors that lead into the building. And it's surrounded by trees. This is a frost peach right here. This is a Gravenstein apple, this is a young mulberry. There's a few more apples, persimmon, plum. You can actually see the plum right here. That branch is growing over the top. And all of those were planted 5 years ago. And so they're doing really well with all that young poultry manure growing into kind of a protective canopy eventually, getting fertilized by the chickens. All the rainwater off of this house we collect, and it's provides all the water for the chicks for the whole year. So that's about 250 birds. And then they're also eating all the extra fruit, clean everything up. We've also rotated and grown the 3 sisters in different paddocks. So if we leave them in for a longer time, kind of have them churn it up, we can grow squash and corn and beans on a rotation in there. And then down by the road, this actually is an old hydroponic greenhouse system, probably from the, I don't even know, 50s maybe. 50s, 60s. These are all like some old cement beds, and then there's actual soil between. It was a huge just blackberry mound, but we're just planting a hedgerow of willows and poplars, and that's eventually to be coppiced or pollarded for cut and carry for summer fodder for whatever animals we have around the farm. So yeah, just incorporating trees and perennials everywhere possible, harvesting what we want, but also just including, just knowing that we'll have animals around to kind of clean up everything else. So not too worried about overproducing. I don't know how I'm at on time, but I've gotten, pretty inspired about silvopasture in the last couple years through the Tree Crops book from the 50s by J. Russell Smith, I think is his name, and then also Austin Unruh from Trees for Grazers. He's out in Pennsylvania doing some awesome work just for shade and fodder plantings. So I'm interested in learning more and hopefully starting to do some more projects on other farms and maybe a consultation and project management side business for silvopasture here on Whidbey. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Appreciate the pictures too. It's really cool to see what you're doing.
Yeah, luckily I just put all that together, so it wasn't any extra work for me.
Nice. So Wayne was next. I don't see him, but I do see we have someone that's just iPhone, and I wonder if maybe that's Wayne, but if not, give that a few seconds. Probably not Wayne. We have Darla Klauser. Do you want to share for a little bit?
Sure, I can jump on. So I'm Darla Clauser. I work for the Stevens County Conservation District as a farm planner. I work primarily more on the ag side, doing a lot of technical assistance, outreach events, etc. But where I'm at up here in northeastern Washington, a decent portion of the land is, either converted old forest land or has a huge component of forest land still existing on it. So it's a lot of integrated systems. It's a lot of those kind of multi-use land spaces. So farm planning definitely includes, silvopasturing, silviculture, forest farming, all that good stuff. We do have a couple of big projects that we're working on. One of them that I want to highlight, you guys may have heard of it before, the Vetter Demonstration Farm and Forest. So let me see if I can share screen here. Possibly. So the Vetter Demonstration Farm and Forest is a WSU owned property that was donated to them here a handful of years ago. The Conservation District manages it. We partner with the WSU Extension up here to do, basically it's a community educational facility. It's a 158-acre farm, so we do all sorts of different farming projects on there. If community members are interested in putting a practice on there that they, aren't necessarily ready to dive into themselves, they can come chat with us. We can potentially build a project and kind of give them, some of the tips and tricks for our region, because it's a little bit of a tumultuous climate and area in some senses. So we do we work pretty closely with, let's see if I can change that, Andy Perlyberg from WSU Extension. He manages I'll go back to this one. So this is the full farm map. He manages the forested section, and the Conservation District ultimately manages the rest of the farm, but we do work pretty closely with him with some of the forest stuff. This last year, we worked together with the Sustainable Farms and Fields grant to plant this back section here for the silvopasture alleys and islands. A lot of those didn't survive. It was definitely kind of a last minute planting, but we have funds and are working on replanting it again this year. And then we have a WDFW project where we're actually going to do some this is the Aspen Regen section, the riparian area. We're going to do a bunch of planting out there with them as a demonstration project. I'm working pretty closely with Catherine Hugim of WSU Extension here. We just put in a big SARE grant it's a professional development program grant to look at virtual fencing in kind of a whole farm integrated system, including that silvopasture area and the forested area. So it's going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll know soon whether or not we get that, but it'll be a really neat opportunity to give folks around here a little bit more of a hands-on demonstration access to looking at, virtual fencing, but also just rotational grazing within those different kinds of systems. We do a lot of events. We do a lot of kind of collaboration with different youth events. We'd run the state forestry contest out of there every second year. Definitely a lot of workshops. We have one where if it's a tractor chainsaw day, so anybody that wants to learn how to come drive a tractor, they can come down and jump on that, and we'll teach them how to do it. Lots of soil health days, forestry days. We try to do multiple components with each event to kind of get people access to the information that they need. So I'm here because this group seems like a really good resource for kind of finding those resources that I can pass along to my landowners and connecting with people about different projects and stuff, pulling in speakers for our different events and just connecting with people with good ideas for cool projects to put on the land out there. So I think that's about it. I do have one of my coworkers, Christina Trahern, is not on the call today, but she will be jumping on hopefully within the next couple of meetings. She's heading up our forest health program, so she's got a lot of really cool projects going on with that as well. Let's see if I can stop sharing screen here. Whoop.
Awesome. Thanks, Darla. Andy Perlyberg's my boss, by the way.
Oh, nice.
And I'm actually, I'm really hoping to get out to the Vetter in June, so it'd be cool to connect.
Excellent.
So there was a question for you from Julie in the chat. We have about a minute here. She has said, can you say more about the silvopasture alleys and islands? What was the goal with that planting and what didn't go well?
So it was essentially, the initial plan was to do, Andy had a couple of different interns over the last couple of years. The first one kind of planned out the silvopasture planting. The second one helped us install it with Phil Anderson, who was prior DNR, may be familiar with him as well. But with just the red tape and the churning of the governmental systems, unfortunately, they didn't get planted until about June. So they had been sitting in our cooler for long enough that it was, they weren't, most of them weren't viable at that point. We did get some survivability, I would say probably about 10%. So ultimately, it's still a good educational opportunity to say, hey, this is what we did wrong. Here's, what to avoid in the future. As far as the setup, this or the map that I had showed with that silver pasture alley, there's I think he did 3 different sections of different planting densities and kind of patternation. And again, because there's such a low survival, it will be kind of restructured this year. He's bringing on another intern, so we're going to work with him to kind of get that a little bit more dialed in and hope for the best.
Awesome. Thanks, Darla. Good to see some East Side representation too. We don't get a lot. So next was Blaze Sullivan. I don't see you on the participant list, but then keeping in mind there's someone who's listed as iPhone. If that's you, Blaze, now would be your time. Also, after that was Brandon McCrae, who I also don't see. So if either of you are the secret iPhone.
I'm here, and I don't think I'm the secret iPhone user. I'm here.
Sorry. Man, I'm really bad at it.
Is the iPhone user isn't here?
I don't think so.
Doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you, Patrick, for organizing. I'm going to use some slides to keep myself on track. So this is our farm, Horse and Fiddle Farm. And we're in Western Washington. We're on the, just get rid of this, sorry. We're on the, in Pierce County, west of Gig Harbor on the Key Peninsula. And we bought this 20-acre property in 2020 from previous owners who occupied the property for nearly 50 years. They cleared the pasture. They raised Scottish Highland cows in a continuous grazing system, just a couple of large paddocks. So we're having to work on taking out a lot of barbed wire and a lot of old T-posts and lots of old boundary fencing and replacing it with something that will serve our needs more. So there's where we are on the left, and there's a look at our farm from way above. Some of the characteristics, it's flat to rolling. This is all glacial terrain. So there's kind of a ridge running northeast to southwest across the property. It's glacial sediment. Most of it, this cleared area is 13 acres, has established, perennial pasture on it. 7 acres approximately is wooded, 20 acres total. There are 4 existing stock ponds that you can see. You guys are able to see my cursor, I assume, in this area here. And so that was nice. We were really excited to see the ponds on the site. Sort of goals, at a high level, we want to, increase the resilience and sustainability of our household as well as our community. We want to be, we moved here to start a farm. Just, for context, I've been a software designer for the last 15 plus years for Microsoft. I'm just on my way out of that. I've been getting excited about farming through permaculture, regenerative agriculture, keyline design, all of these things that I've been filling my head with, and I'm interested in learning and networking and trying out some of these things and starting to build something of a homestead as well as a farm. So it's not just a commercial operation. It's also kind of a lifestyle choice that we've decided to make. So again, resilient sustainability. We want to grow as far as our agroforestry system, food, fiber, fuel, medicine for our family, but it'll produce way more than what we would need. So we would create some targeted enterprises. Want to build a local food system so that there's more food available for people to consume in the local area. Want to regenerate our soil, in our land, build the habitat, build the biodiversity, sequester carbon, all of those high-level goals. We have a site plan very much in progress, work in progress. I'm working with the Regrarians platform and Darren Doherty to, study farm design. And I'm working through that process layer by layer to do our farm design, but this gives a little bit of a sense at a very high level, doing on contour plant multi-species tree and woody shrub crops, and essentially to rotationally graze horses, sheep, particularly we're interested in Icelandic sheep, pigs in the future when the system grows up a little more, and poultry, probably sheep and poultry early on. The tree systems we're thinking of are things that are very pretty appropriate to our zone: hybrid chestnut, hazelnut, willow, alder, ash that are already on the property, apple, pear, mulberry. It's just a super tree. Grape, currant, gooseberry, raspberry. It's typical suspects. And so with the sort of idea of producing nuts, fruit, animal fodder, as well as pasture-raised meats. Also, would like to get into mushrooms at some point. Doing log cultures. We've got lots of alder we can use, and then building material, shade and shelter for our animals. So, let's see. So strategies. Building infrastructure to begin with to graze animals, to cycle nutrients. So that's one of our biggest priorities. That's what we're working on now, is putting in, you can see here, deer fencing. We're using some temporary electric netting, but we're having to strike a lot of the old cow fencing and put animal friendly fencing that's more friendly to the animals we want to do. Early goals would be to pasture lamb once we can get some fencing in place, and poultry, and market direct to consumer through CSA, and establish farm to table relationships. As I said, I'm still working full time, just about to be done with that. And so a lot of this I'll be working to get off the ground. I'll be starting to put more time into it soon. And then obviously planting the perennial tree systems, since it has the longest timeline. We want to harvest fruits and nuts for ourselves, and then we also want to use our food animals to harvest the majority of what falls as mast, similar to what Kevin was talking about. And we also want to build some additional dwelling structures to create income stream through tenancy or agritourism. This is my family. That's our team right now, but we'd like to, at some point we'll need to bring on some others. There's just so much work to be done. And things that we're looking for, I've already gotten some tips already. Funding sources. I heard a couple of funding programs that sound interesting. I would love to hear more. Also civil engineering contacts who specialize in farm system implementation, and established farms to visit. I saw that Kevin threw out an invitation there, and that's awesome. And then part-time farmhand, as I said. So yeah, that is what I have. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. Nice slides, nice PowerPoint. I'm excited to see the agritourism element too. Where is my list? So next we had Ryan Swick. Good to see you.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Ryan. Amazing to hear from everybody so far. So just thank you all for sharing. It's been great to hear about everybody's efforts and initiatives. Really exciting, cool stuff. So I am interested in agroforestry, mainly through like the permaculture design route. I took a PDC a couple years ago now, and really got inspired by the potential of agroforestry and these different applications. So I started looking around trying to find ways to get involved. I live in the city of Seattle. So in the urban context, some immediate things I found were Beacon Food Forest. So I'm involved in that as a volunteer from time to time. Also, I've been working with some neighbors on some small, like mini urban food forest projects in our local neighborhood, basically taking over parking strips, kind of building out and finding robust and like drought tolerant plants that can withstand the craziness of the urban life. So that's been fun, getting those things up and running. I was interested in learning more about agriculture overall and farming overall. So like last summer, actually last growing season in 2023, I participated in the Viva Farms Practicum program. It's basically a nonprofit farm that's based out of Skagit County that also has an operation in King County on some conservation land in the Sammamish Valley. And they run a really cool program basically for folks who are looking to kind of work nights and weekends to learn, how to farm. So they use organic vegetables as kind of the basis, the base crop. So there was no agroforestry involved in the practicum program itself, but just basically learning the ropes of plant propagation, of planning, crop planning, of finding markets, so on and so forth. So it was really, for me, a great way to get some hands-on experience in agriculture. My day job, I actually work in business for a software company in the Seattle area. So for me, this was like an awesome way to get real experience in this field without having to like quit my day job right away. Longer term, I do aspire to start my own agroforestry-based enterprise at some point. I'm definitely very intrigued by kind of a combination of nut crops and fruit crops primarily. Probably I see like a longer timeline as I develop it where I might be more remote and visiting the site just to do large work parties and kind of get things set up and going over time. And then maybe it's eventually at some point, as the last speaker was mentioning, be able to transition to that more full time. So that's kind of like my longer term thoughts. In the immediate term, I'm still, I'm definitely looking for ways to, keep getting my hands dirty. I definitely perceive myself continuing with some of the Beacon Food Forest work and some of the work in my neighborhood. Would love to also, find opportunities at local or somewhat close by farms that might need help. Just to, again, continue to see and get experience in the field. So that's kind of like my overall elevator pitch. And definitely happy to take any questions if any pop up.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. We do have a little time if anyone has a question. I think it's interesting what you touched on, because I know we talked about too, I think there's a lot of demand for that experience, that agricultural experience for people that don't own land. So it'd be really cool to see some of the farms and farmers in this group maybe adopt that. I mean, it's good labor. It's a very mutually beneficial exchange, and a great way to get people interacting with food systems. Yeah.
Definitely. Looks like there's a question here from Nick.
Yeah, I'll read it out loud for the recording. Ryan, is your urban group taking advantage of any NRCS urban programs?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, the Beacon Food Forest, I'm not like on the leadership committee or anything with that group, just like more of a general volunteer. They may be aware of that NRCS urban program opportunity. I'm not sure. I'll definitely like file that one away to talk to some of the leaders about that. In terms of like my little like neighborhood initiative, it's definitely just very much grassroots, very loose, like no formal organization behind it, except from just kind of word of mouth. So yeah, we're not even at that point of like, applying for anything for our small neighborhood group.
Nice. All right, thank you, Ryan. Next on the list, we have Lee and Tim. And I don't know if Tim's here, but I see Lee.
Hi, everyone. We dropped Tim. He had to go prune blueberries, but I'm excited to talk with him as well. So my name is Lee, and I am Rodale Institute's perennial system scientist, and exploring agroforestry research sort of across the country. I'm based in Pennsylvania, and actually I'll share a slide. I'll share a presentation and go through a couple slides of it. Can you see it's a PDF?
Yep.
So Rodale Institute, for those of you who are sort of maybe less familiar with it, it's a research organization focused on the transition to organic. The founders were really into, the idea of organic. And what you might know us for is our farming systems trial, which is the largest or the longest running side-by-side comparison of organic and conventional farming systems. So that was established in 1981, and then skip. We started our vegetable systems trial back in 2016, looking at organic versus conventional vegetable systems. And then last year, starting in 2022, they decided that it was time for Rodale to explore perennial systems. And so that is where I am right now. I am when they hired me, we started our perennial systems research program. And you can see I am based at our headquarters in Kutztown, Pennsylvania, but we also have these regional resource centers. And our newest resource center is in the Pacific Northwest in Skagit Valley. And we are hoping to basically expand our agroforestry research to the Pacific Northwest, focused mostly on organic and regenerative organic certified practices. Rodale also has a strong education and outreach and extension program. And we will skip down to what I am actually studying or interested in studying. Basically, the goal of our agroforestry research program is identifying alternative and next generation crops that require fewer inputs, which enable people to grow them organically, and then develop the tools and resources to promote and facilitate the installation of agroforestry systems. So in Pennsylvania, we're looking at chestnuts and also hazelnuts, Rutgers' newest European hazelnut varieties. And I'd really like to expand this research to include sort of side-by-side multi-regional trials. So anyone who's interested, we're really getting our boots on the ground and trying to move forward with some agroforestry research and extension and education. So be happy to talk further for anyone interested in collaborating or talking more or any of the above. Yeah, that's my 45 slide presentation in 2 minutes.
It's impressive. I bet there will be some questions for this. We've got about 2 minutes. Yeah, has anybody got questions for Lee? Karishma says she's interested.
All right.
Yeah.
Who needs questions? And we can just say we're interested.
Yeah, right. Nice.
I'll add my contact info into the chat, so feel free to reach out, and hoping to, interact with you all in the future.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, winding down here. We have Sachin. Is Sachin, you still on? There you are. Would you wanna?
Yeah, sure. 1 second. A few ways to approach this. Yeah, so maybe I'll start with where I am, what I'm doing right now. So I also work at Zenger Farm, like Lucas, and now as of today, Lucas and I are on the same team. Yeah, so Zenger Farm, urban educational nonprofit farm in Southeast Portland, Oregon, and we're approaching food justice, community food systems, environmental stewardship, place-based education, nutrition education in a multi-pronged way and across various populations through 3 main programs. One is we have a youth education program working with kids K to 12. That's what I was doing for a year, till yesterday. During the year, school programs, summer camps, open to the public programming, evening programming. Any way we can have kids and families coming out to the farm, we love to have them. There's also a program called CSA Partnerships for Health. Like you can go to your doctor, get a prescription. If you have a lifestyle-related disease, get something heavily subsidized, get a vegetable CSA subscription heavily subsidized or for free. I think it's like a county-funded thing or a state-funded thing. And our farm, Zenger Farm, is a pickup point for, I believe, at least 6 or 7 farms in the area. And we also contribute, I think, about 70 or 80 shares to that. And the last that's most relevant for us today is farm operations. We have about 4-ish acres in production. Lucas knows this better than I do. All organic certified, largely diversified vegetable, some fruit trees, some perennial herbs, that kind of thing. We also have chickens, largely for educational and fun purposes. And we also have an apiary, which is right now 1 hive, and I'm the beekeeper there. And why I'm here, I used to work in India. I used to be a Teacher India fellow. I taught 2nd and 3rd grade. And second year of the program, me and a bunch of other core members got together and said, hey, let's try to figure out how to do, figure out the new intersections of nutrition education, environmental education, in a hands-on solution-oriented way. And we landed on urban farming. And I had never put my hands in soil before that. So kind of me and Google figuring it out. And attending a bunch of workshops to figure out how to do school garden programming. And through that, I found Project Drawdown. And that's the first time I heard about agroforestry. I think it was one of the top 15, it's like 120 things in total, but like agroforestry showed up as the top 15 way to mitigate carbon emissions. And in fact, not just mitigate, but like reverse it. So that's what kind of incepted it in my head. And from that point on, trying to find as many resources as I can to learn more about it, videos, articles, research papers, all that good stuff. And yeah. And yeah, now that I work a lot more with beginner farmers, especially in like Portland metro area, I'm finding that a lot of them, even so, beginner farmers themselves and beginner farmer development programs, at least in the Portland metro area, are very apprehensive about agroforestry or fruit trees in general. Like unless it's like a single variety orchard of hazelnuts or fruit trees, nobody really wants to touch it. Everybody's convinced on like, yeah, let's just do it with what we know, which is a diversified vegetable market garden based production system that goes to farmers markets or open to the public CSA. And I'm convinced that that time has passed. It passed maybe 30 years ago. I don't feel like that's a viable model for everyone anymore. And I want to figure out ways to incorporate agroforestry, fruit tree production, perennial production into everyone who works with beginner farmers or even school gardens. School gardens have access to land for long periods of time. Wouldn't it be cool to have like agroforestry demo farm space? Yeah. And sorry, 1 second. Yeah, and also at Zenger Farm, me and Lucas and a few others were thinking about, having a agroforestry affinity group. Also at Zenger Farm, people are kind of apprehensive about fruit trees generally, and like don't even want to talk about agroforestry. So yeah, putting together like a little affinity group amongst ourselves, try to be like, hey, like let's figure out this agroforestry thing. Let's share each other's visions. And I'm still trying to look for farms or forests in and around Portland metro area that do agroforestry. I haven't found anything yet. So if you happen to know anyone who'd be open to us doing a field trip there just to learn, build coalition, that kind of thing, that would be great. And in fact, I heard about this working group. Oh, also my first time here. I heard about this working group at Small Farm School. And one of the presenters, I can't remember his name, but he said he was part of the working group and he shared a bunch of good stuff with us. Yeah, so I guess, oh yeah, and sorry, one more like background piece. There is a natural beekeeper in Kabul, Missouri. His name is Dr. Leo Shirashkin. He does what is called forest farmed honey. I think something like over 1,000 acres of kind of preserved Ozark forest. And he has like something like 50 hives, and it's like what he calls forest farmed honey. It's well beyond organic. It's like almost middle of nowhere. There's no phone reception. There's no internet. There's nothing. Just amazing forest and the most delicious honey I've ever tasted. Yeah. So if you all ever have an opportunity to go check him out, it's great. And in fact, what he does is by doing workshops and selling honey, he's able to buy more land in that area and just keep more of that preserved in just forest stewardship. What I'm hoping to do going forward, with Zenger Farm at least, is I want to think of Zenger Farm maybe 3 years down the line as a urban agroforestry education and demonstration farm. We have I don't even know the number, but I feel like there's more than 1,500 people that come through the farm every year throughout different programs. And just for them to at least see, oh, whoa, this is cool, I never seen this before, and then ask us questions about it. That kind of thing. That's one. And then second, we have an apprenticeship program through farm operations. I'd love to integrate agroforestry education into their apprenticeship education, and maybe somewhere down the line, kind of gradually, not phase out, but gradually focus more on perennial systems rather than annual systems for them to learn. And also if it's a demonstration farm in the city, other beginner farmers in the area may be more open to the idea. And if there's a way to fit in like K-12 education, fit agroforestry into K-12 education. I know Savannah Institute does it. They do a STEM training for high school teachers, which is agroforestry based. I spend a lot of time on the Savannah Institute website, and I've been looking for it. I'm wondering if there's a Savannah Institute like thing here, and I guess this is the place. I'm in the right place. And two last things. I want to figure out how to do tree range chickens. Silvopasture based like chickens. I can't remember the name of the book, but there's this guy who's just like, chickens are jungle fowls. They're meant to be in the trees or around trees. So more than pasture raised, more than free range, definitely, is to do tree range certified chickens. And I'd be really curious to see how the eggs taste, how the meat tastes. And just like, if you taste it, then you're convinced. And on the side, me and my family, we are running a geodesic dome company. Two forms of geodesic domes, bamboo or steel. And the idea is to offer them as like a fancy glamping option, as opposed to a yurt or a tent or a tree house or that kind of, or a storage unit, that kind of thing. Like, you could be a 5-star Airbnb host with these geodesic domes. And I know it takes a while to establish agroforestry systems. So to have an income stream while you're getting established, once it's established, having cool Airbnb experiences to offer to the public. So if anyone is interested in geodesic domes, want to get geodesic dome on your property or your friend's property or something like that, hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, that's the name of the book. Thank you.
That's awesome. And I don't know any farms in the Portland area per se, but there are some in like the Corvallis, Eugene area. We're touring, so we if you want to send me an email, I can send you some information on them. Okay, next up, Jared, do you want to share for a couple minutes?
Yeah, I can share, and I'm actually going to share my screen because I made a basic PowerPoint, so I may as well share it. Okay. So yeah, I am Jared Booz, and I work with the Snohomish Conservation District as an agroforestry intern. And I'll talk about what I'm doing in my personal life first, and then hit the business side of it. Once this goes up. So my wife and I own a bunch of forested property with a stream and a wetland in it, and it's coho bearing, and they breed here. The juveniles hang out and rear all year long. So one of our main interests, and I'm going to maintain that it's my own like weird version of a silvopasture, is we maintain the forest health, and our product is coho salmon. We just don't make any money off of them, but it's still a lot of effort goes into making sure that they're healthy and happy and producing, and they have all the diverse ecosystem niches and shade and everything that they need. So one of the reasons, or one of the big things I'm interested in with agroforestry is riparian buffers, specifically harvestable riparian buffers. So on our property, in some areas, we are doing the mushroom logging, so both oyster and shiitake, and some of it we've high stumped, and some of it we fell the alder and stacked them in the normal way. We've also tried just felling the alder, and wherever it falls in the forest, just inoculating the whole length of the tree. So we're trying a whole bunch of different versions to see if anything takes better or is less work for how much we get out of it. We also have tons of big leaf maples, so we're doing maple syrup farming. And we are currently tapping because it's supposed to get into the mid-20s during the nights this week. And then I'm hoping to actually, and then like 50s during the day. So I'm hoping we can get a sap run. So yeah, working riparian buffers. One of the things that I'm trying to establish along the stream is pollarded willows. So I have a handful of willows that are all volunteer naturally growing that I've started cutting at chest height, and then seeing what we can get to grow off them. Right now, any live stakes will be used on the property to just improve health, fight canary grass, all that kind of stuff. Eventually, I would like to start selling native willows, native willow live stakes, if I can see that there's a good enough market for it, if there's a way it makes sense with all the transportation costs and all that. And then also trying to maintain maintain the working riparian buffer thing. We're adding in a bunch of all the native berries that we can and any native edibles along the streams in the wetland. So that way, as we go down and check on the fish or just walk around the property, we can forage. We are very interested in forest farming because the majority of the acreage is forest. It was originally clear cut back in the 1890, been harvested a few times since then, but it's all forested property. So definitely interested in mushroom farming. We are planting berries all through the understory. That way, as we walk around anywhere, we have access to berries and can just kind of forage. We're going to try and develop that out. Big leaf maple syrup. And again, pollarded willows. We got a bunch of areas that I've identified where the ground stays wet, but right now it's all reed canary grass. So either take a bulldozer through that area and just scrape off the top foot of dirt or so, and then plant a bunch of willows. Again, trying to get pollards out of there for either sale or use on our own property. Same thing with cotton or black cottonwood. We've starting to get into biochar. We want to someday do ginseng on the property in the forest understory. My wife's looking into doing flax that you can then produce to turn into linen. And there are a handful of people around here that purchase flax and make linen. If we do that, it'd probably be some type of alley cropping system. With the tree crop would be black cottonwoods, just pollarded, so they never get too high, never start shading out the flax too bad. But then we'd have flax, black cottonwood, flax, black cottonwood all the way down. And since we're doing biochar production and trying to get into that heavier, my wife's really interested in doing like local Pacific Northwest charcoal for drawing. You can compress willow charcoal currently to make drawing charcoal, and then how they get the color gradations, how they get away from black and closer to white, is they add clay. And we have huge clay pockets all through the mountain that we're on. So we have local clay, we have local willow, and we can make the biochar on site, and we can start doing the pressing on site. So that's kind of like a long-term thing that we're looking at on the property. Day to day, this is all on the weekend. This is just, whatever I can kind of fit in. And like I said, I work at SCD's agroforestry intern with Carrie Brosick, and had the pleasure of working with Patrick a whole bunch and a handful of other people on the call, and just trying to do agroforestry education, outreach, technical assistance, trying to spread the good word, mainly with riparian buffers and anything that helps like habitat restoration work. And that's what I'm up to.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared.
Oh, and I did see their question. Yeah, the cohos, you don't want to eat them by the time they come up to our property. I've talked to one person that has, and they taste horrible. We're 34 miles from the inlet. So they are 34 river miles from the inlet. They are beat up. They look like zombies. They are not in, they haven't eaten since they made it to freshwater. They are not good eating for anybody.
Good advice.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a couple minutes left, Sierra, if you want to go. And then I have one slide I want to share before we close out.
Yeah, and I'll be super quick here. Sierra Smith, WSU Extension in Thurston County. I work mostly in grasslands, prairie restoration, and grazing systems. And just got funding, just got word of funding for a really exciting project that I wanted to put out into the world for people to know about. And it's funded by the Department of Defense to increase the climate resiliency of grazed grasslands kind of in the Southwest Washington area. And with that, we're going to improve soil health on 500 acres of grazed grasslands through additions of typical soil amendments, but also biologicals. We're going to convert 300 acres of continuously grazed grasslands to rotational grazing. So we have the money to build the fences, to put in the water systems, and design the system with the ranchers. So this is all on private land. And then most exciting is 100 acres of agroforestry silvopasture installation, and funding to do all of the design, installation, and initial management. I'm working with Agroforestry Northwest on this project. I'm really excited to get these things on the ground. So that's happening, and it's, if you guys know private folks with grassland that they're grazing that might be interested, put them in touch with myself or Patrick or Carrie. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm also
Thurston County only, right?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brandon.
Thurston County, you said, Sierra?
Thurston, Pierce, Lewis,
Okay.
kind of JBLM as the central hub. I mean, we might be able to justify further afield things.
Okay. We're in Pierce, so I'll reach out. Maybe there's a connection there.
Awesome.
And I misspoke. Ian, I'm sorry, I didn't have you on my RSVP list. Do you want to go ahead? If people, I don't know if people have to hop off, but we have one more, and I guess I must have missed putting it on my list. I would love to hear about what you're doing with the NRCS. So I'm going to say go ahead. I'm going to make the executive decision.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm going to stay black screened here because we have awful internet at my office. I'm just going to give a brief overview, a couple minutes here of a silvopasture research project we're working on. So my name's Ian. I'm an agronomist with the Corvallis Plant Materials Center. We're trying to work on looking at forages adapted to a mid-rotation Douglas fir silvopasture environment. We're partnered with Crestmont Farm, which is northwest of Corvallis in the eastern foothills of the Coast Range. And they're a beef and timber operation, several hundred acres of cattle and a couple of thousand almost acres of timber. And working on this with Oregon State University as well. So briefly, what the study is our study site's almost exclusively Doug fir. And we're really interested in the potential landscape scale impact of being able to layer forage production into kind of this industrial timber kind of scenario. Trees are about 30 years old. The stands where our experiments are were thinned 2 years prior to seeding. They have about 60.
I'm going to interrupt you. This is Sierra. We're just seeing a black screen. I don't know. Are you sharing slides right now?
Oh, shoot. Yeah, I believe I am.
I see your cursor, but I just see a black screen.
Sorry, I thought you were just waiting. No, yeah, we only see a black screen.
Okay, let me try again. Sorry, I guess I'm a little bit too much of a rookie here for this.
I'm sure that's not it. There we go.
Nice.
Okay, so this will just take me a second to go back to the map, I hope. Well, you heard my words. We'll see where this thing takes me. So we're outside of Corvallis. You've got the canopy view, our plot layout. We're looking at blocks on 3 different aspects. So do things perform differently, west, east, south? This stand was thinned 2 years prior to seeding, and then the slash was masticated with a forestry mulcher. And then we went ahead and did 20 single species plots on each one of these blocks, repeated. And planting was done last year in October. Not sure if this is going to advance. There we go. We planted last year in October. Things grew through the winter. Wasn't the greatest fall for establishment weather-wise. And then we did harvests in mid-June of 2023, dried our samples, calculated dry matter production per acre. These are the entries in the study. So we had 9 different grass species, 7 different legumes, and 4 different forbs. And there's a couple of them that are starred. Those are the native species that are in the study, a few grasses, and then 1 native forb, self-heal. And just some pictures of some of the plots near the harvest time. You can see a pretty thin, poor stand of plantain amongst those wood chips on the ground. And then stands of orchard grass and blue wild rye. And that last one is one of our shade-tolerant natives. So what we've learned so far, this is a view kind of across the hillside looking across plots. So you can see those long, thin lines that are the single species plots. This site does appear to be too limiting for legume and forb growth. Everything germinated and started to grow, but production was relatively poor amongst those functional groups. That said, almost all the grass species established and grew, and several of them grew pretty adequately. Of course, biomass was reduced as compared to full sun production. We monitored plots after cutting for regrowth. Regrowth was pretty limited, and certainly less than what we've grown to expect in an open sun environment. And then those 4 species listed there next, annual rye, Festulolium, tall fescue, and orchard grass, sort of your classic forage grasses, and those in that order were the top 4 most productive in this study. And lastly, last slide for you. So where we're going with this, we'll continue the study for a 2nd year. And then the next study I'd like to implement is to assess a similar group of species, but to do this under different canopy covers. So and there's some examples, relatively thin stand up to somewhat similar canopy cover to what we have. And I do think the slash management method and its contribution to forage productivity is a significant thing to consider here. We're all aware about wood chips and nutrient immobilization and things like that, at least in the short term. So I'd like to layer in 2 different slash treatments, one where we're masticating as we had in this existing study, and then one where there's sort of the standard treatment where slash is removed from that location, so we can compare production. I'll put my email in the chat if anybody wants to talk more, and that's what I got.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. I'm glad that we were able to squeeze that in, because that's exactly some of the research that we need in this region. So excited to see what comes from the different canopy treatments. I'm going to go ahead and skip that slide that I had prepared, and I'll send that out in the email tomorrow with a recording, and it's just some announcements about events and stuff going on in the region. So works better if you have links anyway. But I just want to say this has been awesome, and there's been a lot of love in the chat as well. We have a really great group of people participating in this work group, and I really enjoyed this. I don't know, Carrie, what you're thinking, but this would be cool to do as like an annual sort of check-in event.
Yeah, no, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for all the interest and sharing. And yeah, we definitely want to do it again.
Yeah. Our next work group meeting, though, April will kind of return back to the format of a guest speaker and then a Q&A discussion time, and that will be with John Munsell from Virginia Tech University to talk about some of his forest farming projects. And John's a really great guy doing some awesome work. So I'll send information about that in the follow-up email. But other than that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And thank you all.
Good stuff. Thank you, Patrick, Carrie.